Well, the Common App, we meet again. I kind of hope I never have to see you again, but I think it is kind of better looking at you as a spectator instead of something that I have to fill out. But I do hope I never have to use your service again because you charge a ton of money to apply to anything. For a non-profit organization, you are a huge scam, much like College Board. And on that note, hello everyone, my name is Max. I am a student currently in Australia, and barring any accidents, I will be attending UChicago in the fall as a class of 2025 member. I know most people make these videos immediately after they get into college, or immediately after they make their reaction video to them getting into college, but I am a huge procrastinator and I did not think about starting a YouTube channel until around a month ago, because if I don't make this channel now, once I get into UChicago, I will probably never make a YouTube channel. So here I am, better late than never, I suppose. Honestly, I think this is a good time to make these kind of videos because I think around now is when the new sort of cycle of college admissions starts and people really start worrying about whether they're going to get into college, how they're going to get into college, and what school they should get into. So honestly, I think right now is actually a pretty good time to make one of these videos telling you guys about how I think I got into UChicago, so I can give you guys some information and hopefully manage to attract you to UChicago because I feel like it is a great school and I really like it. Anyways, let's get straight into it. I will be reading off most of the information from my Common App profile, which I downloaded around 7 months ago and never touched again after I got accepted. So here we go. My name is Max and I was born in December 2002. I currently live in Melbourne, Australia, and I am Chinese Asian. For languages, I kind of put two first languages because I am fluent in both English and Mandarin. But I think I'm better at English nowadays than Mandarin, but I can still speak Mandarin fluently and also write to a decent capacity. So for languages, I put both English and Mandarin as first language, speak, read, write, spoken at home. I'm a US dual citizen, or I suppose triple citizen, because I was born in California, which means I am a US citizen by birth, but also my parents are naturalized New Zealand citizens, so I have the New Zealand citizenship. And recently, because I have lived in Australia for more than 5 years now, I also got my Australian citizenship, so I technically have 3 citizenships countries. And no, I did not use a Common App fee waiver because I did not qualify and I had to pay a lot of money to apply to a university, which is absolutely stupid. The school I went to is a private but non-selective school in Melbourne, and it is one of the sort of more competitive schools, I would say, around the country, and generally students do quite well compared to the average student around the state. I don't think there's really anything comparable really between the classes I took here and what most American people would take, because we didn't have any like AP classes, or we didn't have any like things such as honors calculus or honors geometry or whatever classes you guys take in America. But I did take some pretty hard classes, and I think really that is the most important thing about letting the college know what classes you took, because I think it is actually more valuable for colleges to see that you took some pretty hard classes and did quite well on them, rather than see you take really easy classes and, you know, completely ace them. You might get A+ for everything, but if you took really easy classes, then the college might not actually like you as much as if you took some hard classes and you didn't do quite as well. Maybe you only got an A- or maybe even a B+, but the college can see that you took the hard class instead of the easy class, and they will actually like you more in that regard. So for my senior year courses, which is year 12 here in Australia, I took literature, which is sort of like a more analytical English. I also took English because I was good at English, so I took 2 English courses. I also took 2 math classes. One is called Specialist Math, which is the highest math course offered in the state. And basically this is the math where we sort of touch a lot on calculus. We do a lot of calculus 1 and 2 material, what you would call calculus 1 and 2 material in America. And also I also took mathematical methods, which is the level below Specialist Math, which is, I think it is like the second highest, but really most people take this methods class because it is a prerequisite for a lot of the classes that you want to take in university here. So as you can see, I took 2 English classes, one of which is literature, which is sort of the harder English, and I also took 2 math classes, including the highest math class and the second highest math class. So you can see that the classes I took were quite heavy. I also did take chemistry. I didn't do too well in chemistry, and I don't think I will be doing a lot of chemistry in university because I did not like the class at all. My teacher was actually super nice, but I just didn't really like the content of the class, and I just found it a bit boring because it's just remembering a lot of stuff. And one other class that I did take, but it was not last year, because you're allowed to take some senior year classes in junior year so that you don't have as many classes to take in senior year. So in junior year, I actually took a Chinese advanced second language, and I qualified as a second language speaker because I came to Australia in year 7, and I also attended international schools in China, which means that I did not qualify as a first language speaker, even though I probably could have also done first language and done okay in it. But the Chinese course in Australia is super hard because there are a lot of Chinese people here, so they had to make the course super hard to sort of separate out the rankings. But yeah, I also did take Chinese as a senior year class. So there you go. These are my 6 classes: literature, English, specialist math, which is higher level math, methods math, which is second highest level math, chemistry, and also Chinese. For future plans, I did put undecided, and that is also what I put for the academic disciplines section when in the U Chicago specific section of the Common App, or not the Common App I guess, but in the U Chicago specific section of the application where they ask about what you want to do at the school. My first choice was undecided because I do feel like I'm quite an all-round guy. As you can see, I did get a few sort of high distinction in math. I also achieved quite well in literature. So, humanities and STEM, I'm not really ruling anything out. I definitely think I do lean humanities in general, and most of the majors that I am currently interested in are in humanities, but I'm not ruling out anything in STEM, except for maybe the really medical stuff that requires a lot of chemistry or biochemistry or whatever, because I don't have any interest in going into the healthcare industry. But yeah, you can apply as undecided and also still get into school. So if you guys are wondering about that, I'm living proof that you can apply undecided and also get into a really good school. In terms of testing, not the SAT, but like the testings like AP scores that you do in school, I did not have the opportunity to do any of those because we don't offer these in Australia. And I think if I really looked really hard, I could have done some AP classes, but senior year was a mess for me. It was super stressful because the way our timeline works is that you have to submit your early round application in November, and then immediately after that, it is our final exams for like the entire high school career. Like, this is the most important exams that we have to do. It's like the statewide exam. So immediately after the early round is the statewide exams, and after that is preparing for regular round applications. So the entire year was super busy for me. We don't really have any designated time to work on other stuff related to American applications, and it was basically all I could do to scramble my application into one piece before I had to go off and study for exams. So I mean, if I had to do AP tests as well, that would have been just terrible. So I'm glad I didn't take them. I did have 2 friends. They got into UC Berkeley, and I believe they somehow found AP classes to take somewhere. I didn't even look, but they found AP classes to take somewhere. I don't think they took the test because of all the coronavirus stuff. I think something got cancelled. But I think internationally, if you do want to take AP tests, you can actually find spots to do them. It's just that I didn't want to do them because I was already completely out of my mind with all the preparation stuff already. So the only testing I reported was the one final score that I already had, which was the subject that I did in junior year, Chinese, second language advanced. And out of 50, I got 48. So 50 is full score, and 48 is after scaling. So I got 48 out of 50, which is, like 96%, but the percent doesn't really mean anything. Yeah, 48 out of 50 is quite a good score, and the top score in my school, so yay. Wow, I just realized the Common App doesn't actually include my SAT scores. Where did I report my SAT scores again? I could just be stupid. Hold on a second. If that's the case, I might just look at my UC application. Does my UC application have some SAT scores? No SAT scores, no. Oh, there it is, test scores. So this is I'm looking at my U California application, so I did apply to a couple of UCs, namely UC Berkeley, UC LA, and also UC Santa Barbara. So obviously, I withdrew my application after I got into Chicago, so I never actually got to look at whether I would have gotten into any of these schools, but on this application, there is my SAT scores. I took the SAT in junior year, which is year 11 here in Australia, basically October 2019, because the school year for us ends in December. So basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to get the SAT over with, because I knew that the SAT, even though the importance of the SAT has been diminishing for the past, like, I don't know, decade or so, like the schools don't really care as much about this as they used to, I know that it is still really, really important to get a score, because getting a score would be a huge advantage over people who did not get a score. Especially, I think, in the context of last year where so many people applied test optional because of coronavirus, they weren't able to do the test, or they just wanted to try their luck because schools were accepting test optional students, so they just wanted to try their luck at the best schools. But I think especially last year, to stand out in the pool of like a hugely inflated number of applicants, having a good SAT score really helped me. And so I only took the SAT once in October 2019. Here's the interesting part. I know you guys are all interested in this, but this is my SAT score. For evidence-based reading and writing, I got 790. And for mathematics, I got 800. So that combines to a total of 1590, which is obviously only 10 marks off 1600. I was a little bit disappointed that I did not get 1600, but also I didn't really care that much because I was aiming for a score above 1550. If I did not get a score above 1550, I would have retaken, but if I just got like 1560 or 1570, I still would have accepted the score and I would have just gone on with my life and never looked at the SAT again. So 1590 was definitely, I think I did overperform to some extent on the test, because generally in the practice test I was getting around 1540 to 1580. But I think also on test day you just do tend to be a lot more careful with your answers, so that's why I didn't make any silly mistakes. And the two questions that I got wrong were both in reading. I was quite lucky that 2 questions wrong only meant 10 marks off, as opposed to 20 or 30 marks off, which is often the case with international test scores. But basically these were two 50-50 answers that were really, really dodgy, and I just picked one of them and I picked wrong on both occasions. So a little bit unlucky, I think, but I think the important thing for my SAT is that I did not make any silly mistakes. Like, all the questions that I should have gotten correct, I did get correct. As you guys probably know, SAT mathematics is not the hardest thing in the world. It is just like sort of linear algebra stuff. You might do a bit of parabola, you might have to know a few graph shapes, but it's not really the hardest math in the world. It is just a super long test, which means that even the mathematics content is easy by itself, just because of the sheer number of questions that you have to do. Most people will make some mistakes, so I was really hoping that I would not make any mistakes in the math section, because making mistakes in the math section and also in the writing section would be suicide, because especially for international students, because the curves are often really harsh. Like, I know that one of my friends, I think it was the same SAT that I took, that he took. He was at a different place, but he also took it. And basically what happened was he got 1480, which is not a bad score, but he was definitely aiming for higher. And he got like 8 wrong on reading. He got full marks on grammar. He got like 8 wrong on reading or something, which is fair enough. And that was like minus 80. So each one was minus 10, which is fair enough. And the reason he got 1480 was he only got 9 questions wrong. One of the questions he got wrong was on math. He is actually a better math student than me, so he does better in specialist math or mathematical methods or any of these sort of STEM classes that we're both in. So he got 1 question wrong in the math section, and it was a question that I still remember because he was ranting to me about it. It was something like, we have this number, and if you increase it by 150%, what is the resulting number? And I mean, this is like the easiest question in the world. You just times it by, you just add 150% to the number. But he thought it meant times it by 1.5, which would only be adding 50%. So he chose that answer and he got it wrong. And that was minus 40. So 1 question wrong on the math section, that was minus 40. And that basically dropped his score from a score that was higher than 1500 and probably acceptable at a lot of schools to 1480, which would be down in the 25th percentile for a lot of the schools that he was aiming for, which is super unfortunate. But you can just tell that how heavily the SAT punishes mistakes, especially on the sections like math and grammar, because they do need to separate out the students, so they do expect the best to get all of them correct. I'm really happy with my test score. I thought that even though I was running on 4 hours of sleep at the time, because I was nervous the night before, I did really well. I was quite relaxed during the test. I managed to weed out all of my mistakes. I'm like a super fast SAT test taker, so I was able to finish like this reading section in like a little under half the time. So I had like over half the test to just look for my answers, repeatedly trying to find some sort of logical inconsistency or some sort of silly mistake, maybe I bubbled something in wrong. But I did manage to catch a lot of mistakes. I think I changed around 5 of the answers that I originally had in the reading section. In the grammar section, I think I also changed some answers and I ended up making the right changes, so hooray. And in the math section, this is what I remember. I didn't change any of my answers in the math section because I just ended up getting all of them correct, because the math isn't really the most difficult thing in the world compared to what you will like sort of learn in high school and junior and senior year. So I think 1590 might be an intimidating score for a lot of people. A lot of people might say, oh no, I can't get that. But you don't have to get 1590 to get into a good school. The average SAT for UChicago is generally around 1530 to 1540. And that is actually one of the higher ones among the top 10, top 20 schools in America. So schools like Harvard or Yale, their average is generally around, I think, 1520 to 1530. I think the highest SAT school would be like MIT. I think they're 1540 to 1550, or maybe even Caltech. But these two sort of STEM heavy schools, they have really good students that just know how to take tests. So the SAT is not an indicator of whether you're good at learning or not. It is just whether you're good at answering these questions under time pressure. So first of all, you don't have to do as well as me to get into a good school, even though it does help. And second of all, I think everyone can do well on the SAT if they just review it enough. I only had to do it once, but since you can take the SAT any number of times that you want, you can take like 7 or 8 times, and like you just take the best score. And some schools accept super score, right? So you just take the best score from each section. So I think with enough work, all of you can do really well on the SAT. And in the future, I might make some SAT videos, just some sort of tips and tricks on how I managed to do the questions so quickly, because like I just told you, I did the reading section in under half the time, the grammar section I did in slightly over half the time, and the math sections, I did both of them in under half the time. So I think being able to do the test fast is really a big advantage. And if you guys want me to, I will make some videos in the future about taking the SAT and what I learned from my testing and studying experiences. Alright, we are back on the Common App page and we are looking at activities, which is not really part of stats, I would say, but I'm still going to go over it briefly. Obviously on the Common App you have 10 slots of activities that you can fill in. I would suggest you fill in all 10, preferably. Like, even if you don't think you have 10 worthwhile ones, you should just fill in the rest with some kind of thing that you did, because having numbers is good. So the two main sections of my activities were doing a lot of writing and also doing a lot of things related to the environment. So in terms of writing, I was publishing online sort of stories, and also I ran my own blog. I was a founding member of an editorial board for a magazine in Australia with some other kids. I was also involved in a lot of other publications. There was a student-ran organization, and they were publishing a green magazine, which is sort of an environmental magazine, and I was one of the contributors to that magazine for the first issue, I think. So I did a lot of writing stuff and also environment stuff. As you can see, the green magazine thing was kind of like a crossover between these two, and I was sort of like a marine conservation volunteer for a project that was ran by the local aquarium, and basically we should have done a lot of beach cleanups and river cleanups. We ended up not doing any because of coronavirus, but I think the most important thing was all the kids in the program led a self-led project, anything that they wanted to that was concerning marine conservation. And basically what I did was I proposed something that centered around social media presence and just raising general awareness about the ocean, because I felt like when people think about environmental activism, they don't really think about sort of the ocean as the first concern. You know, people are thinking about climate change, global warming. The ocean doesn't really come up as much because I guess it doesn't affect as many people as climate change does. But obviously the climate change affects the ocean, which in turn affects people. So I think the ocean is still quite a big part of the environment and people should care about it. So that was one of the projects that I led and proposed. The other section I would say is just sort of some general activity stuff that all students basically do. I did have a YouTube channel before this, but it was a gaming channel, so it's not really worth mentioning. I was sort of one of the organizers for a lot of school events in my house. My school had 16 houses, I think, and I was in one of them. And basically, I organized the debating team and also helped sort of talk about the debating talking points. I coordinated and played in house chess, and we ended up winning house chess, so that was quite nice. I ran rosters for house swimming, I selected house tennis team, so basically a lot of admin stuff around the house I was a part of. And yeah, that basically pretty much concludes my activities list. It is just a big pile of writing, environmental stuff, and general stuff that a lot of students do. So I would say it's not really the most impressive sort of resume in the world. Like if you look at people who have gotten into Yale or Harvard or whatever good school that they've gotten into, they probably have a better sort of activities profile than me. Like they probably did something super impressive, like they made a startup company, or they raised like $1 million for some kind of charity or something. But I'll say the most important thing is not really having these really impressive things on your resume, but the most important thing would be to show the colleges that you have a certain direction, that you have a certain passion that you're really interested in, that you will keep doing in college. And for me, I was obviously, my activities are they had a really obvious direction, which was environmental stuff and writing. And basically I just did a ton of work revolving around these things. And even though the individual activities weren't really the most impressive thing, I think just the sheer amount of things I did and also the dedication, like a lot of my activities were starting from year 9 to 10 to 11 to 12, so activities I've been doing for 4 or 5 years already. So I think this really showed UChicago that I had a passion for writing, which I do, and also I really wanted to help the environment, and that I would be continue to be involved in these things when I come to the college, which is the most important thing, I think. So I think as opposed to sort of trying to find all these impressive things to put on your resume in your application, I think it is more important to find something that you really like to do and do a ton of activities revolving around that. They might not be the biggest things in the world, but they will tell the college that you are really passionate about this thing, that you really want to keep doing this thing. And that is really what the admission officers are looking for, as opposed to sort of people just filling up their resume with really impressive, but things that ultimately they don't really seem like they want to do. Alright, just an add-on to sort of the academic section of this video, because after I finished recording everything else, I sort of realized that I forgot to talk about this. But I just wanted to mention like my school grades a bit. I didn't have the greatest grades in school, like they weren't anything super outstanding. There were many students better than me in my school. I was probably only around, I would say top 10%, I would say, overall. In English and literature, I would say I was like top 3 or 4, but in sort of math and the STEM subjects, or the subjects that required a bit of numbers, I was probably only around like top 15%, even top 20%. So my grades weren't really the most impressive thing in the world, and if I did have a GPA, I know American scale is by 4, but my school doesn't actually offer GPAs. I think they have a hidden GPA that if you really wanted to know, they would tell you, and I think it's on a scale of 10, but I've never really asked, and it wasn't part of my application. But if I had to guess, my GPA would be around like 9.5 out of 10, so it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's also not too bad. And in terms of my school grades from year 9 to 12, which is obviously the sort of years that you have to submit, it might surprise you to know that I did actually have 2 C's. I think both of these C's were in math. One was in year 9, second semester, and one was in year 10, first semester. That was sort of when my math ability reached a critical point where it could not drop any lower and it could only go higher, because it was around that point when I realized that, wow, I'm really bad at math. So I started actually putting in some work doing math, and I managed to raise my grades up to at least an acceptable B plus A level-ish. So that was quite good. But yeah, I did actually have C's and a good amount of B pluses, especially in math. But in English and literature, it was basically A plus all the way. But in sort of math and some science subjects, I did have some A's, A minuses, B's, B pluses, and the occasional C, as I just said. So, if this gives you any hope that your report, if you feel like your report isn't great, and you feel like you've gotten some C's on your report, then you can still get into the best schools, and I am sort of living proof of that. But one thing I would say is you want your grades to trend in the right direction. So you don't want your grades to be like A plus in year 10, A in year 11, and then suddenly drop down to like a C in senior year, because that would be super bad. That shows a bad trend. That shows that you haven't worked hard enough and you've actually been deproving over time. But I feel like my grades were improving over time, like from year 9 to 10 to 11 to 12, especially the grades that were bad. They consistently went up. If you do have some C's, sort of maybe in year 9 or 10, make sure you try to fix it. Make sure you try to do better in that subject in year 11 or 12, which is junior year or senior year, so that the school can see that you put in the effort and you've managed to improve in the subject. So I was going to go over essays in this video, but it was already getting way too long. Like if I included the essays bit in which I talked about the essay like a lot, like it was basically like a whole separate video. It would have been like over like 30-40 minutes long, and I'm not going to upload a video that's over 30-40 minutes long because nobody's going to watch it. So if you guys do want to listen to what I have to say about the UChicago essays, I will make a separate video if you guys really want. So leave a like and subscribe if you want to see that. Anyways, that concludes my video on how I think I got into UChicago, and there will be many more videos coming to the channel in the next couple of months. I'm planning on doing some vlogs about sort of getting ready for Chicago. I also plan on doing some videos about how I did the SAT, all that stuff related to college admissions that you guys want to see. I will be doing a lot of these videos. So yeah, if you guys want to see more content, then make sure to subscribe. I haven't said that in ages. It feels nice to be back on YouTube, and I hope that this YouTube channel will prosper a little bit more than the Minecraft channel. So yeah, have a good day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.